this winter coming. Symbolic poem as well, which must be understood in isolation of just winter. So let's go to a current press. It is a South African context. And if it's a South African context, it is based on the apartheid times. And as such, we cannot deny that one. All right. The structure of the poem is what starts off there. So we're going to go to it. It says lack of punctuation, capital letters, and break from the conventions of writing poetry is a characteristic of protest poetry. The poet addresses the issues of social, economic, and political effects of the system of apartheid through the use of imagery of nature. I believe when we're talking about the structure of the poem, it is a protest poem. And as such, when it is a protest poem, it was based on the state of political uncertainty that was going to arise. And therefore, now it was categorized under as a nature poem because of the winter part. It is a free verse poem, but it is written in a stream of consciousness writing, and because it is based on the way the speaker is thinking. So the way the speaker is thinking is how it is written. And as such, there is no rhyme scheme. We have different lengths in the stanzas. All 5 stanzas have different lengths. There is enjambment throughout the poem. And as such, we are calling it a free verse poem. Right. This is during the state of emergency. And as such, this was the state of emergency that was imposed by the political leaders on a nationwide state of emergency to stop the 10th anniversary celebrations or commemorations of the Soweto uprisings of 1976. So the poem happened in 1986, 10 years later, when the Black people wanted to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the Soweto uprisings. But unfortunately, the apartheid system denied them the right to commemorate, and therefore they declared a state of emergency. Now, what happens is that people were arrested and detained without any charge. What did this create? This created widespread violence in the country, leading to many Black people going to exile. There were daily protests, leading to many lives being lost. Any kind of force was used by the police so that they could arrest the protesters. But now when we're coming in, we are talking about the defiance that is dominating the poem, because the Black people refused to back down. They refused to back down and said they will fight, and therefore they will anticipate the violence and the harsh conditions that were going to come following their denial of stepping down from the commemorations. Winter is usually associated with death. Usually, it is associated with death. And now when we're saying this winter coming, we are saying due to the impending state of emergency and the restrictions it will bring, the poet sees it as a time of hardships and of death. People will die. That's what he declares. We are going to die, because we are declaring that whatever is coming due to us retaliating and not stepping down from commemorating means that we must prepare. So now when we're coming in, hard times are just beginning. No one will escape the hardships. So when we say the winter rain is heavy, walking in the thick rain, this creates a foreboding and gloomy mood when we open, because now we realize that it will bring danger. And as such, if it's a thick rain, which means it is going to be violent, and you cannot see what's ahead of you. We have only just entered. When he says we have only just entered, it has just begun. So the hard times are only beginning. But the rhetorical question, who is not frightened, now highlights the fact that These are frightening times, and therefore it's a call that everyone must be frightened. So now when we're coming into this poem, we are talking about the issue of the weather creates a gloomy mood. Times will be challenging. Everyone must be fearful. Everyone must expect the difficult times. So if they are going to expect the difficult times, they must prepare themselves. Now when we come in, we are saying we now get a shift in content in the stanzas that happen. The sea is sullen, churning and broken waves around the rocks. That stanza, it now focuses on the natural environment. So now when it focuses on the natural environment, it focuses on the sea, the destructiveness of the sea, the waves, the sand is sinking away, stability is eroded, which means we are now entering chaos, turmoil. Nature itself is in turmoil. Rough and stormy seas, which are bringing uncertainty. The waves, the seas are not safe. The land is also not safe to stand as it is unstable. And I believe we have a metaphor there which says, under this sky, this shroud is falling. The clouds are likened to a shroud used for covering dead bodies. This is now a reference to a sense of impending doom, impending danger that will come, that will bring lots of deaths. So now when we're coming in, there's a repetition of the rhetorical question again, who is not frightened? This is an emphasis again on the fear that all South Africans must feel. Now, when we go to the next stanza, there is a shift in content again, because now we are going to a content that is now shifting to the urban and focusing on the people there. And it's clearly the women and the children. And now when we come to the women and the children, the focus is in every part of the city, said women climbing buses, and the women return with slow steps to the children. Now when we're coming in, the women return home exhausted from working in the houses of the white person. The children are alone, and as such, they are in every doorway crying. Poverty, hunger are all the issues that we're bringing in now into this stanza. So now when we're coming in and talking about social context of the living conditions and of the workers, domestic workers are what the females were. Inequality and segregation of areas, they are going into the locations, coming from the beautiful high places where the white people stay and where they work for them. So now this is now showing us unhappiness and gloom that is created there. There is tolling like a black bell. That's a metaphor. Sounds of the storm are likened to a bell ringing for the dead. They work for a pittance while it's neglecting their own homes and families to clean madam's house. So there are so many that they overwhelmed. And as such, the women are moving to and fro, and they work like a sea, moving with their tides, and their mood is matching the weather. Now when we're coming in, their tide of sadness will drown the world. Who is not frightened? If it's going to drown the world, it means that their sadness will overwhelm everyone. But now we have a shift in content again, because now we are shifting the content to focus, which is focus on the men in the next stanza. They are described as dehumanized, in despair. There is a death of feelings. Men have no feelings. They're emotionally dead. They cannot feel anything. They are zombie-like. And I believe we have a double metaphor there, where they are compared to stumps of trees and also compared to tombstones. So now when we're coming in, we realize the conditions that men have been brought to. Men are the leaders and the providers of the families, but they are standing in corners of the streets trying to find employment and work, but to no avail. Now we realize men have been reduced to nothing in society. And now when we're coming in, they are having nothing to focus on. They have nothing to bring back to their homes. And now we realize what the social division has brought in society. The last stanza focuses on the children now. It focuses on the children. We are given that children are not afraid of the storm. They run into the storm. When they are running into the storm, we are now given their fragility and their thin state of physical state due to hunger, malnourishment, poverty. But now the children are the ones that are carrying the key to the future because they start a fire, which means they're the ones that start the revolution and the resistance to the apartheid system. The children will sacrifice their lives in fighting for their future against apartheid. So as such, they are compared to winds of change. They are the catalyst to changes in society. They will end the winter, meaning they will rise up and fight. So seeing that the children are the future and will fight for freedom, the poem ends differently now. It says, is there a need to be afraid? So now when we come to the poem, we are given that children, despite being fragile and vulnerable, are not scared of confronting the oppression. They are going to defeat the apartheid regime, which has dominated them and has brought them suffering for so many centuries. So now when we're coming to this winter coming, we are understanding that this is a reflection on the social, political, and economic oppression. This poem reveals the hardships faced by the people during the state of emergency. So now when we're coming into this poem, we are brought into a tone of somberness. We are brought into a tone of solemnity. There is an anxious mood, a frightened mood, a restless mood in the poem. So now when we're coming in, we must understand that it is not about winter, but it is on a deeper level about the apartheid regime that in the state of emergency that arose in 1986. So now when we're saying winter, what does winter symbolize? Winter symbolizes the hardships and the harsh political atmosphere of 1986, the political unrest which saw many people lose their lives and suffered. So now when we are coming to the significance of who is not afraid, we must talk about the issue that it calls the reader's attention to the causes of the fear that have been raised in the poem. This is the poem Winter Coming. Let's go to our next poem. Our next poem is Solitude. Right. This poem